Good afternoon, kids. Welcome to Awesome Stuff Badly with Uncle Dr. Ernie. I'm the founder and chief steward of the Swan Factory, an exciting new startup that's designed to teach programming to kids. Now, I know a lot of you may be thinking, I'm just a kid. What do I know? He's a trained professional. I could never do what he does. Well, I'm here to tell you that I have no idea what I'm doing. My goal in life is to do awesome stuff badly so that you look at that and say, hey, I can do better than he did. Let's get started. My son and I, Rohan, are building a brand new website designed to teach kids how to do programming. Our current name for it is Rohan's Teenage Robot Turtles. We may have to change the name later. We'll see how it goes. But the basic idea is we want to create an interface which allows you to experience the insides of a computer and how all the signals shoot around and make things happen in the real world. To get started, we're building what's called a prototype. A prototype is the thing you build to give you an idea of what you're going to build for real. We're using a tool called ProtoShare. ProtoShare is a website which is designed to create and share prototypes, hence the name ProtoShare. We're going to get started with an account that I created yesterday with my password that you don't get to see. Get your own. This is using the free trial copy. I'm going to try and make sure it works. I will buy it later once I'm sure that I actually know how to use it. That's a great thing about free trials, but it's really great to pay for the software you use to support the programmers who build them. This is the view you get when you first log into ProtoShare after setting up your account. Let's go ahead and create a new project from scratch. So I'll click on the New Project button here, and I'll call this Rohan's Teenage Robot Turtles. And this is my little project here. It'll open a project in a new window. And there's no members, there's no description. So let's say this is make programming fun and accessible to kids of all ages. So any senior citizens watching, you get to do this too. Why not? It's a great way to have fun with your grandkids. I'll save that description. And now I have a series of pages. So this is the home page, and it lists 3 child pages. I'm not entirely sure what a page is, so I'm just going to try it and see what I can do here. Now, okay, there's a bunch of palettes and inspectors. So a palette is a set of things you can add to your page, and then an inspector is a way to change what's happening on that page. So here I see some headings, I see some controls, a bunch of boxes and lines, some cool navigation tools, and containers. So a container presumably contains other components with even fancier custom components down the way. So what I'm going to do is assume that I'm creating my web page here, and what I'd really like to do is make this thing work with the iPad. So let's see if they have any templates that are designed for iPad. So I'm going to do a Google. I'll go here. I don't need this page anymore, and I will say ProtoShare iPad, and let's see what it says. Mobile prototype. So this is a web page that tells you that their product is really good at handling mobile devices. So you can build a mobile prototype. So let's see if they give us any information about how to do that, or how to say that make sure that my prototype is iPad compliant. Let's try this container. Let's put that in there and see. No, that's too small. And then the sidebar there is components in the project library. Do we have a library yet? Not yet. Let's see. In the palette. Where's the palette? Here's the palette. Let's see if there's a ProtoShare mobile tutorial. Maybe somebody else has already done some of these things. Ooh, video tutorials. Let's see if they have anything here about mobile. Viewing prototypes on mobile, setting up mobile prototyping.
Welcome to the mobile application prototyping tutorial. Whether you're designing for iPhone, iPad, or Android, this video will show you how to set up your wireframes for mobile apps in ProtoShare. In an existing project, we'll name a new design for the home page, iPhone. Double-click to open the iPhone design for editing. Click View in the menu bar and select the Screen Guides menu. You will see a listing of mobile options for applications and websites in both portrait and landscape.
Aha, there we go. That was the missing piece we were missing. So first we should go back to our pages here and look under design. This is our design. It's called a wireframe design, and that's fine. What we want to do is screen guides, tablet, landscape, because we're going to have to make this work. Our design goal, that's the thing that you're trying to build for first, is a iPad, and in particular it's my daughter's iPad 1. Our goal is to make this thing run really well. In that, let me go ahead and close these other tabs here to give us a little bit more room to work with. So this is what our iPad screen guide is going to look like. Then we'll bring up a palette here, and we'll just drag in an image placeholder for now, which is where the map will be. So one of the key goals when you design an application is to have what's called, oh goodness, I used to know the name for this thing, the hero, or the content. The main content should be the star of your application. So this is 768 pixels. Let's make it 18 pixels in there, and make it all 750 with a little buffer there on either side. And something like that. So we got a tiny bit of border around it, but that's where our first area is. And then we will go ahead and bring up our, not our sidebar, our palette. There we go. I want a container, which is where everything else is going to go. So that's one of these puppies here. A scrolling container, a floating container, a well container, and just a regular container. Let's try a well container. That looks, well, interesting, and gives us a little bit of depth and texture, which we may not need later, but at this point when we have a blank screen, it feels much better emotionally to have a little bit of extra texture and reality to it. Yay, so we've got a page with a giant map, and this is where we're going to put all of our controls for our turtles. So let's get started. We have our palette here, which has a series of controls. A control is something that you use to control these little robot turtles that we're going to build on our page. So we have buttons and fields, checkboxes, radio buttons, multiple lines. So we're pretty much going to build this whole interface out of buttons. Now, it would be nice if they had an iPad guide that would show us what iPad touch buttons look like. Let's look at their stencil library. So where are the stencils? Here's all of their stencils, the different icons and gestures that you get to use. And let's see, Bootstrap is a very popular tool that I've used for other websites. Gives you a standard set of buttons and widgets. Here's something that's designed to look like iOS 7. That's interesting, because we are trying to look like we're on an iPad. They don't have iOS 8 yet, but let's take a look at iOS 7 and see what they have here. Switches, sliders, segmented controls, buttons, normal. Oh, that's right. On the iPad today, everything is actually a text rather than, or an image rather than anything terribly fancy. You know, maybe this is too much of a distraction. Let's just focus on building a real simple generic website using these little buttons, and we'll worry about making fancier stencils later. So what do you want to do when you've got a turtle? You've got, let's see, let's make a nice little square button here. And we want to be able to control the turtle and tell it what to do. So we will have, for now, we'll have names here. Can we duplicate that? No, we can't. How do we make more than one of these things? That drags it around. I'll hold down the Option key. That often works. Yes, there we go. Using the Option key, we are creating different names of buttons. use really small, short names. And we have 3 buttons here, and these buttons, we'll just spread them out a little bit to look more interesting. It's a little too interesting. Okay, but that gives us some sense of, hey, these are the things that my robot can do. And later, maybe I can add some, I can add some graphics or whatever. But for the initial prototype, and this is one of the reasons I'm doing the screencast, to remind me that rather than getting really complicated and fancy, do the simplest thing that works first, and then after you've got it working, you can make it fancier. So today I've got a turtle, and when we can punch these buttons, the turtle should move around on this little map that we will create later, because it's just a prototype. We're making it as simple as possible. The second thing that we're going to do, and is actually probably we should add a container for these things to help keep them organized. So let's go back to our palette here. And kids, don't worry if this is a completely unwatchable and boring video. One of the great rules of building awesome stuff is you start out badly for about the first 20 hours. The first 20 hours of pain and humiliation, which, since I'm doing half-hour episodes, is probably going to be the first 40 episodes. So I really suggest that if you're watching this after the first week or two, you jump ahead to episode 40, because by then, I'll be awesome. Okay, I should also set a timer to make sure I don't overrun my schedule. But we'll just wing it and see. Okay, next, yes, I was going to create a container here. One of the key concepts in how people manage their thoughts is organization. That means that you break things up into smaller pieces. Oops, can I build it there? So that instead of saying, hey, move all these 3 buttons, I can say, let's move this container here. Let's see if am I actually able to do that in that container? Yes. So now this container contains those 3 buttons. I can think of that as my little controller container. I'm going to add another container here. And here it's actually a good thing that we use the fancy well container for the outside so we can see what's going on the inside. Now, pushing buttons to make a robot move around is fun, but it gets really boring really quickly. So what we're going to do is add an activity container, which basically it says, hey, when I push a button, let's add it to my list of activities, the list of things that I'm planning to do next. And that way, I can go through and create a bunch of actions. Maybe we should add some names to these things. What do you think? Maybe that'll make it easier for you to tell what I'm doing when I'm building it. And then later, if we don't need them, we can always remove them. So we'll call these actions. Notice it drops that inside the container to make it easier to see what's going on. And then let's call this there's probably a really clever tool that we can use to make sure these things all stay aligned nicely. Oh, maybe under the Align menu that we can space them horizontally and align the top edges, and that makes them look a little bit nicer. That's good. And then now the next thing here is this section here, which is our current activity. Now, in this activity, we want to be able to create a list of things that people will populate by setting actions, and then ideally even shuffle them around. So I'm not really sure how to do that yet, but that's okay. I'm just going to throw in a placeholder. Yes, the almighty placeholder, and that at least gives us a sense of where things will go, and when I add the actual logic and tools, they'll fill in there. So the idea will be that I have this activity manager, which lets me show the activities that are going to happen next. This will be a little tricky now that I think about it, because I want to have a list of things, maybe 5 or 7 of those buttons made really small. And there's something else I want to do. Once I have a list of activities to do, I want to be able to control how those things happen. So I'm going to grab one of my buttons to make sure they're the same size, and I'm going to drag it in here. And this one needs to be let's assume these are kind of like a fingertip size button. We'll have to do some testing. Whenever you build something, you got to test it to make sure it works. But this is our first guess because we're doing awesome stuff badly. So I'm just going to have a button here which will be our go or our run button. And by the thing that you make it, and then you say here, and it'll be like a run pause so that whatever goes in my placeholder here will eventually be the set of activities that I want to be doing there. Let's just put that here for now. I want to have some horizontal space so I can have a nice tray with all the different things. Maybe I'll have some instructions there. Who knows? It doesn't look great, but that's okay. We're doing awesome stuff badly. This is, however, bothering me that these things are not spaced out here. So let's figure out what spacing would make that look cooler. That looks a little bit better. In fact, that looks so good, we will just go with that, and then it'll magically center it there. Okay, we've got our run button, we've got our activity well here. Now this is the magic, where the magic's going to happen. Is we're going to create, when we actually build this application, what's called, let's call it a strategy tab. In fact, you know, I think what actually look better is take these titles out from the container and move them, oops, that's funny, move these buttons up. And make this, and this is probably not the best way to do it. I should probably do this kind of tweaking later, but there's always a trade-off when you're doing design, because sometimes you want to ignore details so you can focus on what's important. The other time it's good to actually play with the details. Okay, how do I move this thing down nicely? There we go, using the arrow keys on the keyboard. And where is my text header? Okay, I lost my text header. It's okay, I can always grab another one. Hope it didn't show up in someplace weird that's going to bother me later. So these are the, we can call these actions, we can call them operations, we can call instructions. Actions is shorter, when in doubt, go with the shortest thing that'll work. And I'm going to change this for now to give myself more room to think. Oh, that's where those buttons are ending up. At the very bottom. That's unfortunate, but not a big problem. Let's move this up here. What I'm going to do is, let me get a scrolling container. I think that's what I really want here. And if I can do that, then instead of having this here, let me get rid of that container entirely. And then, where's that scrolling puppy? Scrolling container. Can I change that so... I'm going to copy a button here. I like that. And in fact, that'll look a little less weird over here. This is why a visual prototyping tool is a good way. I have this picture in my head of what I think it'll look like, but when I actually see it in real life, it's like, oh, that doesn't make any sense at all. And of course, once I actually build this thing, it'll probably realize that this doesn't make any sense either, but that's okay. You start by doing awesome stuff badly, and then eventually, God willing, we'll be doing awesome stuff awesomely. So anyway, this is our run button. This will be our activity well, and that's what it works. So when we press these action buttons, instead of controlling the turtle directly, it'll push it down into the well, and then when we run it, it'll make the turtle move through the maze. So that's pretty cool. But what's even cooler, if we can pull it off, is we want to make this thing where we have teenage turtles. The reason we're calling it teenage turtles is when you're a kid, pretty much everyone tells you what to do, and they control your environment. And in a fixed environment, it makes sense that you can just follow instructions. But in the real world, the environment is always changing. And so for teenagers, rather than giving them commands, we try to give them strategies. We say, when you're in this situation, do this, okay? So when you're in an area where your parents know better than you, it's best to follow what they do. When you're in a different situation that your parents don't understand, you need to find a new strategy. And you need to find a wise counselor, like a teacher or someone from your church or your coach, who can help you understand how to deal with those environments. Yes, this is a little subversive, but that's part of being awesome. Is you can't always just follow what worked last time. You have to come up with something new. Okay, so this panel here is what we call our strategy. And I'm messing it up again. Let's undo that. Let's just grab it from our palette. Bada bing, bada bang, bada boom. And we'll call this our strategy page. Now the strategy page is something I've been trying to figure out how to make this work, because this is really the heart of being a teenage robot turtle, is you have to be able to create a strategy rather than just following instructions, or just, let me just call this instructions. That's what I'm really calling this here. No, operations. So we have an operation, an activity is a series of operations, and a strategy is a combination of an event or a trigger and the activity. So we're trying to figure out how to make this work well. Let's just play with some ideas to see what looks well. So this you have a placeholder. I kind of like the idea of a placeholder, because the goal will be that you will get a atom. Oh, by the way, I never checked to see what the size of this thing is. Let's bring up our inspector. I bet you that would help us. Oh, we don't need to. We have it here. So these are 45 degrees, 45 pixel buttons. That seems like that'll work. It's will be a little small on a phone, but or even on an iPad mini, but on a full-size iPad, it might be okay. So we'll try it and see if it works. So we'll make these things all 45 and 45 just to be consistent. And then this is the containers. I guess we should be putting some placeholders in there too, right? So let's actually make this let's see if we can fill our activity well here with these things. Ah, yeah, see that we got it scrolling. Now the question is it smart enough to scroll in both directions? That's vertical scrolling. That's kind of annoying. I was hoping to make it do horizontal scrolling, but maybe there's an easy way to do it. Let's look at our inspector. Inspector is what you do in a programming environment to kind of tell you where, wow, all the details of stuff you don't want to see at times. So it's a scrolling container. That's good. And show scroll bars always. That's good. Clip contents, yes, we want there. Let's just test. Oh, yes, it has horizontal scroll bars. Awesome. That was the main thing I wanted to know. So in theory, we could have many rows of containers there and everything else will work. So that was really cool, and that's one of the nice things about ProtoShare, is that it lets you test these things. All right, we started at 1:40 and we have 3 minutes left. Let's just see if I can build this out here. So I'm going to grab copies of my container here. Now that's more pain than it's worth. So I'll just go back to the palette and build out my little scrolling containers here. And let's see what's the size of that thing there. Width 150, height 60. So make sure this is height 60, height 55, huh? Okay, let's do height 55. I think that's gives us 5 pixels on either side of our little boxes there. And then what we want to do is duplicate. Nope, that's not duplicate it. What is the auto select groups? Let's just copy and paste, see what happens. Copy, paste. There's probably a much better way of doing this, but we're going to do this badly the first time, and then as we get smarter, we'll do it better. That's the way this whole podcast works. Okay. And one more. Okay. So that is about it for this episode. This is our very first prototype, and I think this is smart enough to just save it automatically. Um, Basically, all we've done is just lay out a really big grid and put up a bunch of buttons in one place. And it may not look like very much to you, but this was something that was before this was just sitting in my head. It was a picture of what it could look like. I had no idea how much room there really was, if I could make the map that big. But by building this little prototype, it's given me something tangible. I can share this with my friends who are working on the design with me and say, this is kind of what it looks like. I can fill in the prototype with additional details to make it more realistic. I can experiment with putting this on an iPad to see if the buttons really work. Also things you can do once you take an idea out of your head and put it on paper. And that's the first step to doing awesome stuff badly. Hopefully we'll do it better next time. Thank you and goodbye!